Hiyo, it's me, Nicole Phoenix Star, and this is the Nick Star podcast. I am feeling a little bit run down and low battery today. Started yesterday, and I realized it's just the culmination of the last 6 weeks of extreme driving every day and overexerting in the doing of life. Anyways, I know that as I have completed my multiple school runs and whatnot, that my body has given me a fair warning sign to not spend the next coming days and onward in the same frequency of overexertion. So I am listening and adhering to tending to my immunity and energy bank, which, is how I view everything. Okay, so why is this happening? Why am I feeling so run down? Why do I have a scratchy throat? Why do I feel achy and headachy? Is to listen to what my body's telling me, to not beast right through, to not numb out, to not ignore. And it's very interesting. I spoke to a few women this week who have been really wrestling with all the symptoms of perimenopause and how they can overcome them. And I tell them that they are not to overcome them. That is not the point. The point is to lean into them and listen and learn and understand that we don't want to reject the messages. We don't want to be able to go back to a way of being. We don't want to reject or ignore or demonize, because they will just get more fierce, and to embrace rather than reject. And it's really such a conditioned way of, rejecting these terrible things. How do I overcome them? And it feels difficult to lean into and surrender to, because it feels like there's no way out, or there's a medical reason that needs to be addressed and prescription filled, and not really understanding that it's simply perimenopause, menopause, and there are a billion symptoms that aren't, frozen shoulder is such a excellent example. You don't overuse that muscle. You haven't injured yourself. You've got hardcore frozen shoulder from hormones. And, a lot of women they're talking about surgery, and I'm like, oh my God, wow, that's wild. It's not being treated for a woman in a hormonal crisis. but a generic frozen shoulder injury by someone else. Anyway, I was not going to be talking about any of that today, but it's a fairly decent segue. Excuse me, sorry about that. Talking about consistency and maintenance, because again, these are the ways through. There's no quick fix. It's always a long game. And I don't know, like I realize that every part of my life is a form of maintenance or consistency. And I always bring around the example of servicing your car and maintaining your vehicle. You obviously put petrol in it to continue to make it go. You put air in the tires so that you don't wear them down or that you don't damage the vehicle so that it actually goes. Oil gets changed regularly. You go to a mechanic and get it serviced to maintain the vehicle. And our bodies are vehicles for these souls that are currently entrapped in them. And we don't service our bodies the same as we do vehicles or air conditioners. And quite often wait for them to break down and then try and deal with them. So many things. Another person I was speaking to, and so many people that I have spoken to over the years, is hemorrhoids. So many women suffer from hemorrhoids, or otherwise known as piles, during their mothering years. And even, lots of men suffer from this as well, and dietary stuff and straining and pooping issues and all of these things. And it's a constant issue, and they go and buy creams or get into a crisis mode. And I have learnt a long, decades-long way of managing and maintaining hemorrhoids, because after I had Ruby, I had really intense hemorrhoids, and I bled every day for a good 6 months, and I ended up having them removed, cut off, and always felt not quite right. And then again, after giving birth to Harley, they came back, and just this whole management of it, until one day someone, I can't even remember who or where, explained how when we sit on the toilet and do a poop, that the rectum opens up, and physically the body kind of like drops these little flaps to help the poop come down. And then when you finish pooping, they go back inside, and a lot of people's don't go back inside properly. And that's where agitation happens and hemorrhoids develop and whatnot. And they said to me, when you're in the shower, when you're soaping yourself to clean yourself, just, go in and make sure that everything in the poop butthole area is inside where it's supposed to be. And from that moment onwards, I would do that, and never had a hemorrhoid issue since. I've had so many people come to me, and in the midst of all the talking in every arena of their life, they talk about hemorrhoids. I tell them the soap maintenance trick, their whole lives change. And another perfectly great example is people with iron issues. You know, taking iron supplements can be really challenging, creates a lot of constipation, back to the poop area. And as a vegetarian for many decades of my life, I had very inconsistent and quite often low iron until I started adding vitamin C when I was eating iron-rich foods, predominantly, green leafy vegetables. By adding a squeeze of lemon, the iron absorption is retained. You absorb twice as much and bank it. And I know that ever since I started doing that regularly and consistently, I didn't have an iron issue. I remembered once I kind of stopped for some reason, like I must have moved somewhere and lemons weren't readily available or something. And my iron got low again. I was like, oh my God, I forgot my maintenance of my lemon. Another thing I tell people to do is if they're not keen on doing that or they don't have regular green leafy vegetables every day like I used to and do, just have a vitamin C tablet whenever you're eating, and any vitamin C that you may or may not be aware, any iron rather, in what you're eating will absorb as twice as much as it normally would. Again, miracles, maintenance. We so often, have things unique to ourselves, and it's only during crisis mode that we tend to them, address them, rather than putting air in the tires regularly, putting vitamin C with the iron-rich foods regularly. Same thing. I don't know, it's fascinating that most people only address things when they're in crisis mode, and then once they're healed, they don't do maintenance as part of their life. They're like, oh, I had this issue, then I fixed it, and then I went back to the way I was operating. And then wonder why the issue comes back. Oh, came back, wonder why. Well, the gap that was there wasn't maintained. And even like cleaning your house, people normally allocate a certain event of like having to deep clean or clean this or do that. I never have cleaning days because I kind of have these small micro habits of just cleaning up as I go, so it never gets to a point where there's a huge buildup or a big pile or a big mess. And it's just a few seconds here and there of life. I'm one of those people that cleans as she cooks and at the end of the meal or washing up done, rather than staring there waiting for something to cook or standing there stirring and looking at my phone. I clean as I go, and it feels like I started really doing that as a consistent thing when I started recognizing maintenance in other areas of my life. Why I meditate every day and not just when I'm feeling crap. Why I move every day. You know, people want to lose weight. They go on these diets, get to their goal weight, and rather than going into a maintenance program, they just very slowly, which is very quick, go into ways of eating unconsciously, and they may think it's healthy, but not realizing it's full of calories, and put all the way back on. It's kind of absolutely crazy to not do maintenance on every aspect of your life, just incrementally, rather than waiting till it's in crisis mode or your house is a pigsty to have to deal with it and take a huge amount of effort and be really annoying and put pressure on yourself and overwhelm, rather than self-supporting and doing a little bit, because all those little bits just add up and there's no need for any big event. So it's a kindness of self-supporting, rather than just letting everything. I don't know. It's so much easier than people think. Oh, I can't be bothered doing that all the time. Yeah, okay. Well, then you live in a constant state of chaos and mess until you can't stand it anymore, and then it takes you forever to deal with it. It's exactly the same as disease, unhealthiness. You know, anyone that has their life in order, their house in order, all their bits and pieces in their life in order, has their head in order. It takes all of that chaos, external chaos, out of the chaos in your mind. It's so funny. The other day I got up and I don't know, something happened, and I came back to my room. A few hours later, my bed wasn't made, because when I get up, I make my bed. I feel like the day's in order. One less thing to think about. Life doesn't feel messy. It's literally an 18-second job. And those 18 seconds it takes me to pull up my bed blanket and put my pillows in order, straighten it out, and going from one side to the other side. It's probably less than 18 seconds to make my bed. Just are huge. I came back and I was like, oh, I'm going to have to make that bed soon. Or maybe I could not make it. It's just this whole chatter of nonsense. And I'm like, well, should I make it? Because I'm going to hop back into it in a few hours. I was like, oh, well, how long are we going to have this conversation with ourselves about the freaking bed? And it's thought that I was naughty. I didn't make my bed because it's just an automatic thing. I literally got up and then got pulled out into something. I can't even remember. That's just an example. I always delete my spam and emails. So I used to be one of those people that had hundreds in my emails, hundreds in my spam. And it just got to a point where it was just too overwhelming. I just ignored it, bypassed it, just ignore it. And it did affect me because it felt like I was in avoidance, and that felt ick. I didn't really realize until hindsight, and the 4 seconds it takes to address all of those emails in a day just cleans everything up, and I never have to think about it again. It's kindness to self. It's like, I don't know, like, people go, yeah, I can't be bothered doing that. It's like, just try and see how different it feels when you don't have to go back to deal with stuff. It's literally doubling. Oh, I need to get back to that. And the time you spend, the stress it causes on whatever version of thing, because, lots of people can compartmentalize and ignore it for a while, and then other people, it wears on them, and they worry about stuff, and probably not to the level of, how many emails they've got there, but it's a thing, and it's a thing. Putting things off because they feel like too much never happens if you just take the seconds to address it in that moment and maintain your life, maintain your energy, maintain it all. Yeah. Anyway, I think I'm done now. I have to go and wash Leo's hair out because we have not done the regular once a week maintenance due to end of school events and late nights and crazy weather and all of these things. And now we have to put in this extra time because it's all matted underneath and it's a mission. So I'm going to go and deal with that because we didn't do the maintenance like we always do. And now the living consequence. It's such a mission. That's hilarious. All right, my love. Thank you so much for listening. I am so grateful. My website is www.nickstar.com. Mwah.